Good afternoon, everyone. Here we are in the hallowed Hall of Philosophy. This is really quite a treat. Every time we come here, I am told not to let the mic get too close because it gets gravelly. Is that better though? Can you hear well? So those of you who are reading, keep in mind that I guess you have to hold it fairly close, but you don't want to eat the mic. I welcome you to the award ceremony for the Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Center Writing Contest. I don't know how much all of you know about the writing contest, but the writing contest in some form or another has been happening at Chautauqua for probably at least 100 years. The Women's Club originally sponsored poetry contests, and once the institution took over the Writers Center in about 2008, the Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Center started to run the contests. This year we have had 2 adult categories, poetry and prose. We also do have a young adult category, although we did not have submissions in that category this year. And we have a youth category in which people who meet that age criteria can submit both prose and poetry. We have 2 endowed first place prizes. The poetry award is called the Mary Jean Arian Poetry Prize, and the prose award is called the Charles McCorkle Hauser Prose Prize. Mary Jean Arian was a very well-known supporter. In fact, she was the founder of the Writers Center at Chautauqua and its first director in 1988. And her organization was independent of the institution for 20 years. When Alumni Hall up the road here was renovated in the 2000s, the Writers Center did become part of the Chautauqua institution. Chuck Hauser was a foreign correspondent for UPI and later a longtime editor of what we now know as the Providence Journal. That particular newspaper claims it is the oldest continuously published daily newspaper in our country. In 1985, Chuck made national news in a First Amendment case in which he was fined and sentenced to prison for contempt after publishing documents in defiance of a court order. After he retired, Chuck began attending workshops here at the Writers Center and was a member of the Writers Center board for a few years before his death in 2005. So this year, our judges, as always, are professional writers who have published themselves. We had Kristen Kravacek and Jim Daniels judging our contest this year. They have done it in the past as well. Most of our judges over the years have been writers who have taught workshops here at Chautauqua. Kristen is a native of Pittsburgh. She taught prose writing and memoir at the Writers Center many times over the past 30 years. She has been a winner of the Pushcart Prize for her essays. Her books are a memoir, History of My Breath, and she has edited an anthology called Birth, a Literary Companion. She has a memoir forthcoming called Sanctuary that will be published next year. Jim is the recipient of a 2026-27 Michigan Author Award from the Library of Michigan for Lifetime Achievement. He is a Detroit native and is now living in Pittsburgh. He has published multiple books of poetry and has a book of essays coming out very soon. His latest book is called Late Invocation for Magic, New and Selected Poems, and his essay collection is called An Ignorance of Trees. And that book received a Michigan Notable Book Award. Jim teaches in the Alma College Low Residency MFA program. I'm going to announce the awards now. We are going to keep this fairly short. I am going to somewhat condense some of the bios that were sent me, and I am going to read the judges' comments for the winners of first and second place. Unfortunately, we never have enough time for the prose winners to read, at least in the adult category. But we are so grateful and encourage all of you winners to continue writing and submitting to the contest. We have 4 honorable mentions in the category of adult prose. I think what I will do is read the names and the brief bios, and then if you'll hold your applause, we will applaud the honorable mentions all together. The first one is Gavin McFadden for a piece he wrote called The Violin Boy. Gavin is from Jamestown. Gavin is not here, I don't believe, or is here? Okay. The second is Thomas Tiller, who for his piece called Harmonicas. Thomas is from Miami Beach, Florida, and I don't think Tom is here either. The third award is to Laura Daniels for her piece Nani. Is Laura here? Laura has lived in the Adirondacks of New York State since 1994. She owned a bookstore for a number of years and then a small inn for 27 years. This summer, her sister encouraged her to take a writing course in Chautauqua, which was her first attempt at creative writing. She looks forward to publishing, or rather to spending more time writing and hopefully publishing and painting and visiting the magical land of Chautauqua in her retirement. Our final honorable mention in adult prose is to Heather Pollack. Is Heather here? Heather is a classical studies professor and also teaches a social action course at the University of Akron. She is pursuing an MFA in creative writing. She and her husband and daughter raise, tag, and release monarch butterflies for their migration to Mexico. This summer was her first visit to Chautauqua, and she hopes to be back soon. So we'll give a round of applause to the poor. Now, in the second prize winner in adult prose is Michael Field for his piece Turtles All the Way Down. Is Michael here? He's online. He's online. Hello, Michael. I don't know where the camera is, but Michael's been coming to Chautauqua for a decade and has been active with the Friends of the Chautauqua Writer Center. He tells stories through writing, memoir, autofiction, and poetry. And when he isn't writing, he is singing or traveling. I will read the judge's comment on his second prize winning piece. I admire how the writer of this short essay invites his reader along as he solves a family mystery around a legacy of puzzling behaviors and temperaments, arriving at a belated compassion for himself and for his father, and also delivering a lesson for us all. Congratulations to Michael Field for his second place award. And now for the first place winner in the adult prose category, this would be the Hauser Award. It goes to Lydia Stroll for her piece First Tea. Is Lydia here? Hello. Hey. Lydia has been coming to Chautauqua all her life. Her grandmother bought a family summer home here before she was born. She was a journalist for many years, writing for the Washington Post, USA Today, and America's Most Wanted, and now she writes fiction. Her winning story was influenced by her earliest literary obsession with the dark fairy tales of Brothers Grimm, C.S. Lewis, and Roald Dahl. Her upcoming novel, The Unmagical Life of Esther Day, is partially set in Lilydale. So the judges' comments on Lydia's piece. Teeth is a magical story about a sadly real phenomenon, aging in the time of AI. With clever and moving detail, the author follows a witty woman and her digital companion as she faces the losses coming for us all. A very timely, accomplished work. Congratulations, Lydia. All right, now we're going to move on to the Adult Poetry Awards. Again, we have 4 honorable mentions. The first one goes to Mark Conaway for his piece, Boxes and Butts. And I think Mark's here. Oh, wait, there he is. Mark's been coming to Chautauqua for over 20 years. He's a retired air traffic controller. He enjoys bicycling and writes for the joy of the language. The second honorable mention in adult poetry goes to Julia Messing. Julie's an undergraduate at Johns Hopkins, studying writing seminars in medicine, science, and the humanities. She has spent summers in Chautauqua her whole life and began loving writing and poetry after taking John Brantingham's Writing in Nature course. Her poem was inspired by the poem The Hideous Chair by Aaron Ballou. The third honorable mention in adult poetry is Crystal Pierce. Crystal Pierce, hello. Crystal's first Chautauqua experience was attending the 2016 Writers Festival. She's a poet and lives in Marcellus, New York. Our final honorable mention, and by the way, we are going to have all 4 of these pieces read. I just thought I would list the names first before we get to the final awards. The fourth honorable mention goes to Stephen Still. Is Stephen here? Yep, here's Stephen. Hello. Stephen lives in Chautauqua year-round. He's one of the brave ones and has enjoyed Writer Center classes and writing poetry from prompts. All right, congratulations to all 4 of our honorable mentions. So luckily, we do have time to hear our winning poems. And if you all are ready to read, we will start with Mark. And Julia, Crystal, and Stephen, if you want to come up at your convenience, then we'll keep our program moving here.
Okay, okay. So that's first of all, thank you, Beth Ann, and just being acknowledged in this way with this writers group. Hey, it's my favorite place to be, and I'm just happy to add a little bit more to my cred for being part of that. Yeah. Oh, okay, here we go. Boxes and butts. The Great Pyramid, Khufu's remnant, a sun-scorched symbol in stone. There wasn't much else to pile up in that ancient world. No desert of Dasani bottles or used car tires. My legacy may even be larger, since I began it at an early age, in an age that said yes to obsolescence and no to Seneca. While I was still getting grades and things were still degrading, accumulation across the nation was ramping up. With the cooperation of corporations, plastics were waiting for the graduate to announce their arrival. I was 16 for the first Earth Day. I picked up that banner proclaiming my naivete. Rather than a commitment to ecology, Eventually, the banner was recycled. For a while, I tripped the trash truck fantastic, and I raked in the reek. The hefties and the glad bags were notions futuristic, as if only we, on the collecting end, could imagine a maggot-free trash can. My college days cigarette was built with Marlboro Reds. The numberless flashy boxes screamed the passage of time. That's a lot of smoke, but she never spoke of the butts, which count. When they stop filtering, they start amassing. K-cups, empty of their load, make no mass, but their volume speaks volumes. Cleverly stacked in my mind's eye, the pyramids dot the landscape. Reusing, recycling, purposeful repurposing, put on hold for the big game, stadiums strewn, never sorted. My pitiful efforts pale. I toss things in the trash today and multiply by 50,000.
Thank you very much, Mark. Our next reader will be Julia Messing for the Creaky Step.
Quick thank you to my professor for poetry, Greg Williamson. The Creaky Step, after Aaron Bellew. This creaky, slightly misaligned, screeching in E-flat slab, bracing to hold for the black-heeled boots. Its wood freshly carved, circa 1975. I've assumed a great many things. A forced silence. Morning newspapers crumbled below wine glasses. But let the record show I was unyielding. Oh, let the creaky step stand. For the immigrant shop owner with the hammers in aisle 7. For perky Emily with her mice at the lab. For the tennis player's dog, panting in 98 degrees Fahrenheit. And Karen McDonald, sick but hands in prayer. For Alexander's green poetry book, and the oboist freezing through spring. The twins, biking past the gray cracked gazebo, their rainbow helmets, lullaby giggles, and fingers ringing ruby red bells. Let the railing be nailed, but let the step be creaky, and stand against the compliant, silenced, overly plastered virgin metal, submissive and stood upon. Let me have in any future some creaking thing to love, here, Chautauqua, New York.
Thank you, Julia. Our next reader is Crystal Pierce for her poem, Grandmother.
Thank you to you all coming here. Grandmother, after Adelaide Crapson. The moon, her grandmother, watches her. The moon, her grandmother, watches her from the west. Her long hair silvers in the light of day. White hair, a spider's web, strand woven into mesh. Someone found a use for her loss, their gain. The moon in its setting, its waxing and waning, bathes her face in fickle light at daybreak. Cradled, the lunar light, soft comfort as sleepless. I sit in the window seat, star counting. Walk, lit by the moon, around snow-covered fields. Grandmother tells me a story of spring. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Our next reader is Stephen Still, whose poem is Everything We Want.
This is a special place to me. This is where Terry and I exchanged vows. So this came out of a writer's workshop this very summer. Everything we want. We have everything we want. And then the zombie apocalypse descends from Mars. Green tentacles suck the Bitcoin from our Venmo coffers. Even Elon Musk will be drained of his trillions. After all, it was his flaming X rocket that brought back the first putrid cells that festered in the rusted Lackawanna steel plant, drifted to the falls, and plunged into the heartland, where the Iowa farmers rose up and sprayed the alien ooze with enough Monsanto to send us back to the 50s, where we have everything we want. Lime Jello, a humming V8, and righteousness on Sunday.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, our final two adult poetry winners. Our second place winner for her poem, The Poetry Criminals, is Catherine D'Agostino. There she goes. Catherine is a retired Chautauqua County High School and College English teacher who lives in Fredonia. She's a published mystery novelist and has published Linger, a chapbook of her poetry and flash fiction. She says she now writes more hours a day than she sleeps and finds poetry frightening, seeing it as a genre that consumes part of the poet's soul. Her judges comments, it's very hard to write a good poem about poets and poetry because of the self-referential nature of the task. The best ones are often humorous. And this poem does a fine job with the wry tone captured through the clever imagery of seeing us poets as criminals, while also conveying a serious message about our role as poets. We'll have Catherine come up and read.
Good afternoon. Poetry criminals. Poets are criminals by default. They enjoy nightly rounds of ding-dong ditch, planting ticking bombs into unsuspecting minds, targeting the innocent who are just out for a good read. These villains play as often as they wish, without a license or background check. No mandatory waiting period. Even pistol permit applicants must agree to good moral character. They shrug off insults like thug or repeat offender. Guiltless, they forge ahead with their craft, never considering the dangers hidden in their roiling wakes. So focused inward, their outward disappears. And you can add escape artists to their rap sheets. Off they walk, avoiding harsh sentences, freed by juries who spring them left and right, citing lack of evidence, failure to prove intent, conflict of interest. But it's those jurors, the ones who have placed all humanity's eggs into a basket, one woven with just nouns and verbs and spit and sweat, who guard the truth. Poets must never tire of detonating complacent thoughts, dim corners, overripe cellars, empty suitcases, packed refrigerators, silent alleyways, before turning and running for their own lives. Those explosions have the power to bump a life back on course, to push a straining soul to a summit, to give a mind exactly what it didn't know it needed. Enough time to spot a dark storm approaching from the west, or to witness blonde strands unfolding over the eastern horizon in the glow of morning's purple mist.
Our first place winner in the adult poetry category is Ann Wallace, who I don't believe is here. Would you like to read?
I haven't seen.
Okay. I have it. Would you like me to read? This is Ann's mother, I believe, and she is here because Ann was unable to be here. So thank you for coming. Ann lives in Jersey City, New Jersey, and is a professor of English at Kean University. She's the author of 3 poetry collections and served as her city's 2023-24 Poet Laureate. She has been coming to Chautauqua for 20 years. She wrote this poem when her father was hospitalized for what turned out to be a fatal stroke. Chautauqua and the CLSC were very special to her father, and this summer he advanced posthumously to the next level in the 7 Seals. The judge's comments on Ann's poem. This poem skillfully develops the imagery and detail of a childhood growing up near the water, then makes this remarkable turn into the deeply resonant metaphor of the father's failing health. The poet clearly has a deft touch with poetic technique, combining sound and image without one extra word to create this powerful poem. And I will read Ann's poem, which is called Watershed. I grew up in a watershed, the fragile ancient basin of Sipican lowlands, and salt marshes, soft shorelines pocked with air holes of fiddler crabs and clams, all flowing into Buzzards Bay, splitting the salty arm of the cape from the body. Nasset from Wampanoag, land overtaken 4 centuries ago. Life is uncertain in a watershed. Massasoit to Melville, one fragile borderland, history turning over, washing. The origin, away with the tide. My father's brain holds watersheds too, feathery arterial edges where blood runs low so far from center. When pressure drops, there are no defenses, and the story of a life ruptures and then drifts and drifts and drifts away. We watch and wait. We hold out hope the tide will turn. We have one more award to announce, and I meant to say this earlier, but both the judges communicated to me that they were very, very impressed by the quality of the work submitted to them this year. And I think that's a real tribute to Chautauqua and the writers who come to teach us, and all of you who work so hard at creating this art. So thank you to all of you. Our final award is in the youth category. And it goes to Emma Yelverton for her prose piece, Meatloaf and the Surprise Substitute. Before I tell you about Emma, I just have to tell you that I don't read the pieces as they come in because that's not my job. That, you know, the judges are the ones who read the pieces primarily, although sometimes I get a chance to read them later. But I was convinced that she was going to write about some kind of meat substitute that somebody put in her meatloaf. And I was so surprised that the substitute meant something else entirely. So there you go, Emma. So Emma lives in Pittsford, New York, where she will be entering 5th grade this fall. She has been coming to Chautauqua since she was a baby. She loves writing fictional children's stories because they give her real-life interests a fictional twist. In addition to writing, she loves drawing, acting, listening to and making music. Her winning piece is from a larger collection of stories about this character, Meatloaf O'Connell, who is a 5-year-old girl with a famous family. I want to read the judges' comments before you come up and read. This charming story of a wonderful guest substitute teacher shows a writer with great knowledge of their subject matter, school, and a playful and accurate command of telling detail. I expect we'll all be reading work by the author of Meatloaf and the Surprise Substitute someday. Come on up, Emma. Where's Annie?
So first of all, thank you all for being here, and thank you to my 2 best friends and my best friend's sister who inspired this brilliant character. Meatloaf O'Connell was 5 years old and had a backpack covered in glittery cat stickers. She loved 2 things more than anything: snack time and her Aunt Billy. Aunt Billy wasn't like other aunts. She had beautiful blue eyes, platinum blonde hair with bangs that barely touched her eyes, and she always wore the softest white sweater Meatloaf had ever touched. And she was famous. She sang songs that made people feel big feelings, but to Meatloaf, she was just the aunt who made the best peanut butter and banana sandwiches. One sunny Tuesday, Meatloaf's teacher, Miss Cho, didn't come to school. Principal Shelley stood at the front of the classroom looking a little worried. "Class," she said, "Miss Cho is sick today, but we have a special substitute teacher." The door opened and in walked Aunt Billy. "Aunt Billy!" Meatloaf's sweet eyes as wide as the moon. Sarah, who was 6 and had red hair with bouncy curls and the biggest ego possible for a kindergartner, gasped, "Is that the Billy?" Timmy, who was 5 and liked to wear his superhero cape even on picture day, whispered, "She looks like she's a pop star." "That's 'cause she is," Sarah said. "I wonder if she'll let us have extra recess," Timmy wondered aloud. Aunt Billy smiled and waved. "Hey everyone, I'm Miss Billy, Meatloaf's aunt. We're going to have a fun day." The class buzzed with excitement. Instead of the usual morning routine, Aunt Billy taught them how to make up silly rhymes. Sarah came up with "A cat on a hat sat on a bat," and Timmy shouted, "A frog on a log eats a hot dog." Meatloaf's rhyme was "A dinosaur in space with a polka dot face," which made Aunt Billy laugh so hard she had to sit down. At story time, Aunt Billy didn't just read the book, she sang it. She made the words bounce, stretch like they were part of a song, and the whole class swayed along. Even Principal Shelley peeked in to listen. During art, Aunt Billy showed them how to paint clouds that looked like marshmallows. Timmy painted a superhero cloud, Sarah painted a rainbow cloud, and Meatloaf painted a cloud that looked like a cat eating a peanut butter sandwich. By the end of the day, everyone agreed it was the best school day ever. As the bell rang, Aunt Billy knelt down to hug Meatloaf. "Thanks for letting me be your teacher today," she said. Meatloaf grinned. "You can be my teacher every day if you want." Aunt Billy winked. "Maybe just sometimes, but I'll always be your aunt." And as Meatloaf skipped out of the classroom, she decided that even though snack time was still great, having Aunt Billy as a substitute teacher was her new favorite thing in the whole world.
Thank you all for coming to our award ceremony 2026. Keep writing, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you back next year.
A video of this will be available on the Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Center channel on YouTube, hopefully by late tonight. Be sure, Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Center channel. And you'll see a whole bunch of other things there too. Authors hour readings, studios, favorite poem projects, things like that. Things like that. They will be available at the library, is that right?
Of the stories.
Good.
Winners. Yeah, the way we manage the winners is, and everyone agreed to this, I will print them up. I will have them stapled into a pamphlet. It will go in the library for reading, not for circulation. Last year's are there right now, so when I get around to this, I will swap them out. And then you'll be able to read those until about this time next year. All right, thank you very much. Here.